Well, hello, beloved. I am Bishop Andy C. Luter, and I'm delighted to share with you another video lecture in my series on church leadership. This series, as I have stated before, is designed for persons who are in training or looking forward to participating in local church leadership. More specifically, I have arranged this material for deacons, deaconesses, ministry leaders, auxiliary leaders, trustees, stewards, or any other position of the local church where this material can prove to be fruitful and of benefit. This lecture, as my last lecture, will conclude with questions at its end that will help you to prepare for an examination if that is the custom of your congregation. So, like part one, let's get started with part two. This lesson is entitled The Organization of the Bible, Part 2. Following the books of law comes the books of history. These books refer specifically to the history of the ancient Israel congregation. The books cover the time between Joshua's conquest of Canaan, or the Promised Land, through the period of kings that ruled over the divided kingdoms of Israel and Judah. These books number 12, and they include Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Kings, 2 Kings, 1 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. The third section of the Old Testament is poetry. The contents of this book, or these books, do not adhere to our common understanding of poetry, with each line or stanza ending in a rhyme. But the books are in fact written in a style of prose that has a certain cadence and rhythm to it. These books are also referred to as wisdom literature because so much of the material found in these books can be called life lessons and can be applied to the daily living of the reader. There are 5 books in this section, and they include Job, Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Songs of Solomon. Now, in the case of Psalms, the book was originally a song book or hymn book that was used by the early Jews in worship. Because it is such, it is not appropriate to refer to the contents of this book as chapters as we do other books of the Bible. Rather, the contents of these books are referred to as selections or divisions. Friends, the vast majority of the Psalms are attributed to David, but other authors of Psalms include Solomon, Asaph, and even some anonymous authors. Other books in this section include Ecclesiastes, that discusses the vanity of life, and the Songs of Solomon, which describe the love between a man and a woman. The final 2 sections of the Old Testament are strongly related to each other because they both deal with the topic of Old Testament prophecy. Now, when it comes to prophecy, the Bible divides the prophets into 2 sections, the major prophets and the minor prophets. It should be noted that the distinction between the two has to do with the volume of material that was written by the individual prophets and not the value of what they wrote. Let me explain what I'm talking about. What Isaiah wrote in his 66 chapters is equal in value to what Malachi wrote in his 3 chapters. Volume, not value, is the distinction between the groups of prophets. Now that you have viewed this particular lecture, take a minute to consider and answer the questions below. Here is study question number 1. What is the second section of the Old Testament called? Number 2, how many books are there in this section of the Old Testament? Question number 3, name the books that are in this section of the Old Testament. Number 4, the section of the Old Testament that is written in a style of prose is called what? Question 5, how many books are there in this third section of the Old Testament? 6, name the books that are in this section. 7, which of these books was a song book or hymn book for the early Jews? Number 8, which of these books describe the love between a man and a woman? Number 9, the final 2 sections of the Old Testament deal with the subject of what? And the final question, number 10, what phrase describes the distinction between these final sections of the Old Testament? Listen, friends, I'm Bishop Andy C. Luter, and I want to thank you for sharing these last several minutes with me. Friends, I pray that this material, this curriculum, has indeed proven helpful. I look forward to sharing with you with the next section, which is the organization of the Bible, part 3. Remember, God loves you, and so do I.